Hey y'all, I know it's been a while, but as usual, oh, not even in the camera. As usual, I've been praying and fasting and uh honestly this last fast God, like I heard God clearly on a lot of things, and I want to talk about those things. So, God has been dealing with me about accountability and discipline. Like I shared, I guess this was like a couple months ago. Like one of the impacts of me surrendering control was developing and cultivating discipline. Like I said, I had been disciplined in a lot of areas of my life, but now like it's different. And so, and what I mean by it being different is that like I I I don't know. I just see it manifest differently. Like with the exercising, I try to be active every day in some way. Lately, I've started doing Pilates, and so I've been doing that nearly every day. And I try to aim for 4 to 5 days a week of activity just because I notice the benefits and impacts that it has on my life. And ironically enough, I was studying yesterday, and in my reading, what came up was the benefit of exercise on your brain. Now, we've all heard about like the benefits of exercise just in general on your health and on your mental health, like your physical health and your mental health. But aerobic exercise forces more oxygen to your brain. Your brain needs oxygen to perform well. And if you're in a stressful job, or you're in a stressful, like you're taking stressful classes or something like that, aerobic exercise or any exercise that's going to really get your that blood flowing is going to be beneficial to you. And so it made me reflect on the last time I was in school and how I was working out almost every day, and how I was able to get in really good shape, but I didn't realize like the side effect benefit of how it impacted me for school. Nonetheless, all that to say, I want to focus on discipline and accountability. And what I mean by discipline, I want to talk about like from how you were parented. So, because of things that I experienced, like the different traumas I experienced growing up, I developed a victim mentality. And as a result, I struggled with accountability in some things. And it wasn't for me, rather, it wasn't until a conversation I had with this guy that I was friends with, where he called me out on it, that it stuck with me. It stung, but it stuck with me to the point that I went and prayed, and God began to open my eyes so I could see myself. I could see all the ways that I was playing the victim and not taking accountability in things. And God revealed to me that if we are parented in such a way, like if we grow up in a strict household, like every little mistake we make is criticized heavily, we will grow up and very likely develop a victim mentality. And how that manifests is usually like when we're doing something wrong to somebody else, we want to deflect. We don't want to take accountability. We don't want to own our faults. And I am seeing that in some ways in relationships around me, and it's hard for me. And the irony right now, like the biggest message that I took from this was that I have to extend those people grace the same way I received grace when I was in that space. And even now as a parent, it makes me be very intentional and think about it. Like I pray all the time about parenting my son, and not saying that no one else does, but I pray all the time because I am so hyper focused. I have been rather so hyper focused on not messing him up as a person. Like I know everybody has their cross to bear, but I don't want to ruin my son, so to speak. Like I want him to be able to take accountability and ownership for things. So I try to model it to him. Like if I say he did something, like say for instance, he left something and I told him to put it up and I didn't think he did it, I will say, hey, you didn't do XYZ. And he'll be like, well, no, I did do it. and then I'll apologize because I want him to be comfortable apologizing to people and taking ownership for ways he's fallen short or ways he's like hurt someone else. And so now he'll come back and voluntarily apologize about things. And I see that now, whereas, you know, had I still been dealing with that victim mentality, I wouldn't be able to see that. And so one of the ways that God dealt with me and brought me through and delivered me from the victim mentality was through the prayer of asking God to show me myself. Like, show me how the decisions I made have got me to this point. Show me my thinking, show me my thought process. Show me how I am seeing things, the lens through which I'm looking at things, my perspective, and correct it so that way I can see things the way you want to see them. I can see myself the way you see me. I can see others the way you see them. And so if you're a parent, I only want to say, just be mindful that sometimes if you're too overbearing on your child or too strict on your child, that it can backfire in their adulthood. They can develop the victim mentality. They can become bitter. And we all know what bitterness and forgiveness can do to a person. And those things can also turn into them not taking accountability for their actions and the things that they've done. And instead, like, you know, I just encourage you to pray so hard and ask God to show you yourself so that way you can work on yourself. But more importantly, pray so that way you're able to recognize how to approach and correct and steer your child in any situation, just so that way things like the victim mentality don't have an opportunity to come in. Because when you're an adult dealing with it, it's much harder to correct if you're not intentional about it, specifically as an adult who has been delivered from the victim mentality. And seeing other people around me who look like they have experienced that, and their lack of accountability and how it bothers me. I have to also remember, the last thing to remember is to extend other people grace, especially if this is an area that God has healed and delivered you in, that you are conscious to extend them grace. Because a lot of times people just can't see the things that they're dealing with because they have tunnel vision. They don't see like the larger impact of their decisions. They're only focused on themselves and their hurt, and they're not willing. I don't want to even say not willing. Let me take that back. They may not physically and mentally be capable of dealing with that stuff that's inside, and therefore changing and growing and maturing as a person. And all we can do in that case is just pray for them. And then, of course, in the case when the person is hurting you or being harmful to you, then you remove yourself from that situation. So that's the first thing that God has been dealing with me about, which is how discipline impacts accountability.